Charlotte,
Hello.
hello. Shall I call you Charlotte, your surname as well in one introduction?
Yeah, you can say my name.
Charlotte Gordon. There you go.
Yeah,
Welcome.
thank
Uh,
you.
It's great to see you. It's been I didn't say it actually when we jumped on because I can actually see you and obviously anyone listening can only hear you. Um, I haven't seen you in person for quite a while.
Yeah, I reckon it's a good 10 years actually. I've aged gracefully, as have you, so
No different. You don't look any different.
that's what they all say. It's genetics apparently. I've got no idea.
You don't
It's all
look any
part of it.
you don't look any different. I swear. I'm not just
Drink
saying.
loads of water. That's what I say. Stay hydrated.
Exactly, that's what I do. I drink copious amounts of water, like
Yeah, it's the one.
ridiculous
I
amounts.
actually think that is one of the secrets of aging, but that's not what we're talking about today, I'm sure.
I don't know, might get into that as well,
Well,
maybe.
I'm
So backstory. I This is my understanding. My version of it is we met. Um, I think it was where we met that time. I think it was what I was saying earlier when we checked in. That we met on that famous street in London where all the the shrinks hang out.
Yeah, where it's meant to be like top level everything, I'm
Yeah.
not 100% sure if it actually is or whether a lot of people just rent that space and then say that they are that top level, but
Yeah. I mean, I've got an opinion on that, and I
I think
will
I
last.
just did it.
Yeah, I think you just said it. So you, when I first met you, it was quite infantile, wasn't it? Your company.
Mm.
So what is it? Tell everyone.
So I run KIP Education, and I started out really just as like just a small me uh, going into schools and teaching young people about drugs and sex and relationships, and that was like it. And that sort of subject became bigger and bigger and bigger, even though only's got the same amount of time in school, but the actual topic became ginormous and became really a mental health and well-being space where we cover so many things.
And what?
Yeah, that's where it is now.
Okay. And so KIP. What does that stand for?
Knowledge is power.
Damn
And I
right.
specifically chose that because I was undiagnosed as a young person. I'm a diagnosed ADHD adult. This was not unusual to it. This was not a shock to anybody, obviously, but me. Which was it was revelationary to me. But as a young person, some of the obvious skills that I think other young people had, or I felt like everybody else had, they weren't natural to me, and I wanted those skills for other young people, and I felt that that was like my mission, my life's mission to spread those life skills and, and make a change. That would be my legacy. That was my idea of my legacy, and, and it carried on. It was the one thing actually that I put everything into. I always worked with young people, but it was the one thing that I put everything into, and everything worked that way. It evolved in that way, it moved in that way. Everything took me down that direction, always. So I've never looked back and thought, "Oh, I wish I'd, like, become a barista or a florist or a midwife or something."
Mm.
I felt was my calling always.
Wow. It's very inspiring. And I was when I first met you, because there was this little cluster of a little crew of people from what I recall. There was like a little gang of us that um you was doing your thing. I think I was doing I started to do some stuff with another organization which we won't talk about.
Yeah.
That's we won't talk about that. That was just part of the journey. I dabbled in doing some stuff with them because I was like you just described, got my own version out. I don't need to bore people who've been listening to me enough to know my journey a little bit, to know that I'm in this space, which is why, when you're in a space with like-minded people, you collaborate with people, right?
Yeah.
So I think it was always going to happen that I was going to do some stuff with you, which I'm really actually quite chuffed that you still read.
Dragging back.
Yeah, you sort of roping me back into it, and it's like for me, it's quite nostalgic that time in my life because like that was a long time ago. It feels like.
It's still a great space. I mean, working with young people in that way where you get to connect with them, it's I feel like for me, I love, awe-inspiring moments, and I don't think everybody experiences awe-inspiring moments,
Mm,
and when you can give awe-inspiring moments, it hits you. There's a connect
mm.
that is so gorgeous, and that's what we're doing, and that's what you're doing when you're doing those, when you're having those talks in schools as well.
Yeah, I love it. It's something where I learnt so much. Um, I cut my teeth, I like to say, by because I used to. I don't know if you know this, but back in the day, I used to do sales, right? I used to be a bit of a
I did
sales.
not know that.
Yeah, back
It
like
doesn't surprise me.
oh god, this is years ago. Back in the madness of the haze of it all, my former life. So I think I learned a certain persona then, but then going into school because we was just chatting, having a giggle about this before we hit record, right? It's a tough gig going into schools. It's your hardest audience. It's not for the faint-hearted, right?
Beyond judgment, it's judgment times a million, you know?
Yeah. You've got like, because you've done it, I've done it. Anyone that's done it will know, right? I'm not talking about going into a bar to do stand-up and you've had like a skim full of drink and you're cracking jokes to an audience that are either going to banter you or be with you. I mean, that is, I can't even imagine how hard that is. But you're not
I feel
exactly.
like it's quite similar
I
actually.
don't. Well, yeah, maybe there is
Now
some
since you put it in
similarities.
that way, it is a bit
Yeah, but
times.
going in, you're bare. You're bare. You're raw. You're completely unplugged from any sense, unmasked. I guess now that's not true. You have to wear a bit of a mask.
Yes and no. I feel like, a good facilitator is authentic. And if you want to connect with people, especially young people, authenticity is like by far the top level, which means that you could be any age and connect with young people if you are authentic.
Yeah,
But minute you're not, they'll see straight through you and you're screwed basically. So if you walk in there and you like try to like talk like a young person, and I've seen it, it's hideous. It's really awful, really cringy.
yeah,
And but if you go in and you are yourself,
yeah,
you will engage and you will a great rapport almost instantly. It doesn't even
yeah.
matter that you're only there for an hour.
Yeah, well, I worked out really early on that, yeah, getting on their level, it made sense to me, my common sense. And we did some training around this. I don't know if I've ever done training with you. We must have done, but you must have rolled out training to me, but I'd done some previous training. Um, and part of it is, yeah, there's definitely a certain way to do it, right? It's not for, you can't just walk in, like you just said, you can't just walk in front of a bunch of kids. Right, kids, do you want to hear a story?
Yeah, if you're screwed, but that's the same with parents. Like on the flip side of the work that I'm doing with young people, the other side of that is the work that I do with professionals and the work that I do with parents and foster carers and social workers. And all of that work is about rapport and engaging,
Mhm.
just understanding the dynamic between you and a young person and how to be an actual compassionate, trusted adult.
Yeah.
It is all part of that, of what you're talking about there.
Yeah, so it's like a systematic there's an element that's is systematic because from what I recall, I presume you still do this, it's like you have impact with like you just said, you have impact with the students, with the young people, and then you would do parent engagement and teacher engagement because you do teacher training as well, do you?
Yeah, loads of teacher training. You'll be amazed. I mean, I do work with professionals in prison workers and things like that. You'll be so amazed
Wow.
all these people across across different services who work directly with young people and are have an inability to engage with them. They are completely unaware of what that they know it's wrong, some of the stuff that they're saying. They know that they're creating a divide, but they still say that stupid yeah, a bit like when you say to a young person, I don't know, say you've got a young person, you're smoking cannabis, and you say, if you get caught smoking cannabis, you'll get a criminal record, and then you won't be able to go to America. And they go, they want to go to America. And then they never speak to you ever again, right?
Yeah, yeah,
They're having a great time on cannabis. So
yeah.
you've got to think about like what you're saying and whether it's relevant and whether you're actually pushing them further away from you
Mm.
to have more of a conversation. To me, like you say, it's a bit of common sense. And when you say it's common sense, to me, I feel like common sense is things that are obvious to you. Yeah. Things
Yeah.
seem obvious to you, right? And I'm not sure that everybody has that where things seem that obvious to them.
Yeah, basic stuff. Like, I was just talking to, Ben, yesterday. We just did a recording of, a little, um, the other show that I'm working on with Ben,
What is that
who's
other show, Dave? I'd like to listen to that.
oh, it's not launched yet. It's called The Velvet Revolution. It's coming soon.
I
With
can't wait.
with Ben, he's on episode 3 of this one, of the Conversations episode 3. Ben Rice, he's the head of a PRU. And, yeah, we was just talking yesterday when we did a record, and it was all about, because this, like, the way everyone's sort of this neurodiversity now, that we're all like, he was saying, it's like Pandora's box. It's all out the box now. So there's all of this stuff now that we're all sort of trying to figure out. But the school system is still stuck in a groove that doesn't really hold the space and permit us to do that, the young
It's
people to do that.
awful.
It's really mad, isn't it?
Yeah, do you know, I read a statistic. I read 2 statistics, okay? So the first statistic is something like 75% of all violent crime is committed by under 20-year-olds, right?
Mental.
That is huge. That says something about young people, right? Now check this. 80% of men or boys in prisons are diagnosed with ADHD, and that's just the diagnosed ones, right? So
Right.
I find that, like, there's a correlation between that, the idea that the school system isn't able to hold our young people and
Mm.
then they are then moved to crime, right? But wait, I got more for you, right? So I've got 2 children and obviously I've already told you I've got ADHD. So
Mhm.
inevitably I've gifted that to my children as well. And, so we recently I've got a 9-year-old. In the last 2 years, we she had an ADHD test, right? And the test is really interesting because they do loads of different tests. It's not like I think some people think it's like you tick a few boxes on the internet and you've got a diagnosis. It's really not. It's
Mhm.
extensive. And, they did so one of the tests, they basically they got her really bored and then saw how she behaved and how she acted out, right? I mean, at one point, she was, like, swimming on the dining room table, it's crazy. She's brilliant. She's a brilliant person, right? Um, but the idea that you get someone really bored and then see how they behave and if they behave badly, and that's school. That to me is school. Like,
Yeah.
I got really bored. I mean, I had one of my reports even said, "Charlotte has joked her way through the year."
Mhm,
Now,
mhm. I
I
remember.
feel like that's fi actually, that should have been an award considering because I had to get myself through the year because as a system, you couldn't get me through the year. You
Yeah.
couldn't make it interesting enough for me, engaging enough for me, and I do know that when you engage those people like me and like my daughter and like 80% of that prison population, right? When you engage those people, the ones who were engaging already, you will still engage them. You will
Yeah.
engage everybody. It seems like such an obvious switch to just make school engaging, interesting, fun. Like it seems so obvious.
Yeah, yeah. Yet we're so far away from it. And why are we kicking that can down the street still? Why? Why is it? I mean, I can't help but think, dare I say it, and I'm gonna be bold, fuck it.
Swear to start it. I love it. And say I'm gonna swear it off. See,
Yeah,
I
there we go. That's just teeing it up for what I'm about to
yeah,
say. Um, Ofsted, right?
mhm.
There you go. Fuck it, I've said it. Ofsted. Um, my dad was a head teacher. This is this this is true. I don't know if you actually know this, right? So
No.
my dad was head teacher, right? He's retired. And he was saying to me, and I'm gonna repeat myself because I think I've said this on something else that's being recorded, but it doesn't matter. This is relevant to what we're talking about. His school that he was the head of at the time, and I think it was out in Kingston upon Thames at the time, and I'm sure he said it was that one anyway. I may be wrong. Um, he had the first Ofsted inspection in the country,
Wow.
and he smelt a rat. Like, and what I mean by that is, my dad didn't use that terminology. That's my terminology. But he could sense that this is maybe not going to be beneficial because it felt too, you know what I mean? It felt
Just
too,
another exam, isn't it?
yeah,
You know, let's just give the school an exam, which you can't possibly understand emotional context through
mm,
tick boxes. You
yeah,
just can't.
yeah. He got a strong sense, and my dad, you know, like me, is a bit of a, you know, bit of an outlaw in the sense of what he did. You know, he was always, you know, trying to do his own thing like I did.
Yeah, and intuitive as
So
well.
that's, yeah, we've got similarities there. So and look, you know, just because I'm relaying that, and my dad told me that, you know, that's just the way he saw it, and he's entitled to that observation. Is he wrong? Was he wrong? I don't know
I
if
think
you.
we can all say that the system is, you know, is a Victorian system. We are certainly not living anywhere close to a Victorian world, so it's obvious that we've outgrown it. I mean, we only just changed the sex education stuff in the last 10 years, and you know, just even the fact that we can talk about pleasure and porn in a classroom seems yeah, honestly, it seems fascinating that people don't know about aren't thinking that they should talk about this with young people, that it's not
Yeah,
and
it's great that you do this. So I want to, like, now you're getting into that and you've mentioned it. I want for anyone listening, you know, if someone, because you cover a lot of schools, right? Across,
Mm.
you go up and down. It's not
Up and
just.
down and a bit across the globe as well. We do a few
Ah,
I know I'd love to say, Dave, that I've had the luxury of going to any of these international schools, but unfortunately, because of COVID, everyone's happy with the virtual thing. And yeah, so it's I'm
oh,
virtually there, but not quite physically.
well, there may be some parents on here that are sitting on the board, you know, or you know, good mates. You know, they might go to the sauna with the deputy head, or you know, the bursar or something, and
You're a
like,
governor or some
yeah,
honestly, if you can get
yeah,
me abroad,
yeah.
yes, I'll bring you, you know? It's all good.
Right, this is a mission. Right, so anyone listening, if you've got any involvement in booking incredible speakers, I'm talking about you, Charlotte, a great organization that can just inform, in your own words, what are you going to do when you go into school? In your own words.
Well, I guess we're obviously, we're gonna deliver in an impactful, interactive, and engaging and memorable way, so that's for starters, but it's what we're talking about as well. We're talking about, like, giving young people the skills to internally risk assess life and to make informed decisions, and I do think we do live in a different world like that, you know, where young people do a lot more research than before, but yeah, it's giving young people those skills and those tools to make informed decisions. And when they're in a crisis, they've got a risk assessment already up there, you know, in your head where you can make a good decision and a safer decision.
Yeah, excellent. So a big part of what you do is presenting, and you get people, speakers. I mean, you've got me roped into it again, so I'm dusting off the cobwebs. But
So
you get.
pleased to meet you. It's hard to find. It's hard to find a good speaker, you know. That's the like
Well,
I say, I don't. I think probably teachers are a dime a dozen, but really good facilitators, really good engaging,
Yeah.
teachers are something else.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've sent you. I mean, I say sent you. It's like I'm pimping people out, but I've, I've suggested a couple of people which I think you've used and they've been effective, right? They've been
Yeah.
good.
Oh,
Um,
100%.
but it is not for the faint-hearted to go into a classroom and like you say, be authentic and be able to deliver authenticity and show vulnerability as a strength, of character, and to capture their imagination, inspire, and maybe inspire them to provoke thought, just to think about things,
Yeah,
and they don't
agreed.
have to do it in the moment. They can go away and percolate and let it
I
bubble.
totally agree. That is, and I think that's like two things that you've sort of highlighted that are really important. And that works as well, like for parents, is like, don't really assume that because a young person hasn't turned around and gone, oh, aha, I totally get it, and I'm changing, and life is different. That doesn't mean that they won't. Like I said, at the point of crisis, think about what happened then or what was said to them then. Um, yeah, so, yeah, I don't think it is for the faint-hearted. You are in a I love those moments. I love any, like, aha moment with a young person. That's really all the stuff that you should be saying. You shouldn't really be saying anything else, like, forget all the other stuff that pushes people away and only say the aha stuff, and you're gonna be in a you're gonna have a much better relationship. It's really difficult. As a parent, I know this as well, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And have a sense of fun, man. Make it fun as well. Um, I remember being in a session once. It was a small class, and there was two ladies who were filling doing the session. I think, and I'm sure they were like in the art department, and you could tell they were sort of just like at the back doing a little bit of something else, which
Yeah,
or
a
the
bit of
teacher.
their homework or something
Yeah, which is
that
not.
to catch up on.
Yeah, it's nice because you want it to safeguard the space. You want a teacher at the back, but you want them to not feel like you don't want the students feeling like they're being watched and listened
I
to.
basically don't want the teacher at the back to be involved at
Yeah,
all.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
like my main aim is do not get involved at all. Don't say a word. I always find that they interject with really, and they interject with the stuff that I've just said to you.
Yeah.
They think that you haven't said enough, and so they think that they need to like say, "And you'll die, and this all that, and you'll get psychosis," and they think that's the thing to say, but actually that's the thing that young person's never gonna come and talk to you. They're gonna still call
Exactly,
gonna
exactly that,
oh,
exactly that. And there are shockingly speakers that go in and do that stuff and roll it out. That I know of.
honestly, I know some terrifying speakers. I actually, went on a talk that I can say this because 'cause I'm not gonna, quote them, and they're not from the UK either, but I went on a talk about, cannabis, and, marijuana. It was American, and, she basically said she started it was an hour and a half, and she said it started off with that her son had died from cannabis. So already I was like, "How?" Like, I mean, I'm desperate to know what the end of this story is, right? And so the whole way through, she's just like coming up with it was just pure scare tactics. But one of them was this really unusual, it's unbelievably rare. I had to even look it up because I'd never even heard of it, where it's like cannabis induced vomiting and you can die from that, right? I know.
Death by a whitey.
There's by vomiting, right? So I've looked it up. It's you can't understand how rare it is. It's the most pointless thing to say to a young person because they will probably have smoked cannabis 100 times and all the people around them and no one's experienced that, so it's all pointless. Um, but at the end, she also she obviously forgot to mention at the beginning, but at the end she did talk about the fact that her son had been on antidepressants and he'd come off them cold turkey. And, I suspect that that was closer to the reason why this child, took his own life and
Oh,
not
man.
the, supposed cannabis-induced vomiting or
Yeah,
honestly,
yeah.
and that they I don't know how many other people were on a talk, were on that talk. They've got resources, they're really trying to push their, agenda, and
Yeah.
yeah, we know for a fact, research says scare tactics do not work. It is pointless. Just don't bother. You're only scaring the ones who were scared already.
Yeah, well,
Weren't gonna do it.
so I had, you know the drug box that used to go round? You don't use the drug.
Still got mine. It's got, like, cobwebs all over
I
it.
hit you right,
Cost
okay,
me a fortune that, it's about 600 quid, that box.
so I think it was right, so I left school in '91, and I got, the summer holidays that I left school in between school and going to college, so that was the year of '91 in the summer, in the holidays. I had the police enter my mum's house. Uh, and, and, um, and they were searching for drugs because one of my so-called mates got his collar felt because we got chased by the police for smoking a like, for smoking a doobie. Back in '91, that's what it was like, right? You
Yeah,
in
I think it is, and still I think still you could get into
Okay,
trouble
alright.
like that in certain areas of England for sure.
Okay. So we did a runner. I got away because I was far too crafty to get caught. This guy that I was with got his collar felt. He got pinched, and he said, "It's him. You know, it's Dave. It's Dave. He's the one that's got the drugs."
He threw you right under the bus. What a good
Yeah.
save.
So they went to my house, the police, and they went in. They terrorized my mum, my poor mum. Bless her. And my brother was, you know, really fucking angry at me, quite rightly so, because it brought police to the house. And to my horror, they'd gone through my room. There was no drugs there, I wasn't a drug dealer, just smoking a bit of weed, a bit of hash. They found my porn stash, which was, to my horror, that was the thing that was, and he did it on purpose. I think the policeman laid out all of these erotic editorials on my bed, just to,
Do me
just to
a
just to humiliate me basically, and he did a good job of it. But the reason I'm telling you this is because the exact same policeman who had a go at me, who was in the house, and he was really pissed off because he couldn't find anything, um, came into our school,
Oh, stop
um,
it.
the previous year with his drug box in his police uniform, put his hat on the desk and lectured us on the perils of using cannabis and all of this sort of stuff.
Some rubbish. I still think that's a pointless space as well, to be honest.
Yeah.
Talking about I think the law is a really off space to talk about drugs with young people. Like, I think the laws are the laws, whether you believe them, whether you agree with them or you don't agree with them, you know?
Mhm.
Uh, but yeah, the laws obviously carry consequences. But
Course.
I really believe that people who use drugs or try drugs are not thinking about the law in the slightest, and they know the law. They know the law
Yeah.
already. That's probably the basics of their knowledge is they know the law, and that's it.
Yeah. So absolutely. So I've developed 2 questions I use now as like a bit of a thing, and it's like, I ask myself this in anything I could be doing, and I ask it to, other people if I'm mentoring people. It's like, ask yourself 2 questions, why are you doing something, question mark, and how does it make you feel, question mark,
Mm.
because, at the bottom of it, like you say, it doesn't matter any deterrent. If your answer to that is, why am I doing something? Because I need it. It's something that I rely on to live for whatever reason. Okay, well, how does it make you feel? Shit. Or momentarily it makes you feel good, but I know deep down it's not the answer.
Yeah.
Then there's an issue. It doesn't matter. Police, going to prison, you come out, it don't matter. If you can't resolve those two answers to improve so that why am I doing it? Because, I'm in pain. Okay, so how does it make you feel? Well, yeah, it might smooth the edges a bit, but the pain's still there. And I have to do this because every day, because of that pain. Okay, so should we have a look at that pain? Do you feel ready to look at that pain? Do you want some help with that?
Yeah, I
Are
think we
you ready?
underestimate the coping situation, the fact that we are all coping in
Mm.
general, surviving and coping,
Yeah.
and young people are no different. And young people pick up coping stuff, like, you make it up as you go along, you know? My coping was like, well, I started, like, cutting myself at 10, and, it was coping, but I had no idea at the time. I couldn't articulate my emotions at 10, and coping was just, yeah, I didn't realize I was coping. I actually just thought I'm miserable, not
Yeah.
coping, and I think I was way more focused on I'm miserable, I'm anxious, I feel awful, than I'm actually really coping. I'm
Mm.
coping. I feel awful and miserable and terrible, and I'm coping. I must be very bloody strong to cope, but I just didn't pick up on any of that until,
Yeah.
I was like 30.
Yeah. Like, again, I was just talking to Ben on the other thing about this, about it's a skill set. It's a skill set, a required skill set to survive, to cope, to have that resilience to stay in a situation in life where you're just coping,
Yeah.
you know? That takes a lot of discipline and a lot of resources to
Yeah.
stay,
Agree.
and if you can just use that same grit and willpower, I guess, in a way, to that strong will to stay in that, um, way of being, and just apply it to sort of the getting the help.
Well, coping is a strength. You don't realize, like,
Yeah,
your coping is almost negative, but
yeah.
it's actually a strength. So when we're coping, we are, even if it is that you're cutting or you're taking drugs or you're, you know, doing negative stuff, which I understand that young people do that because they don't have like the conversation to talk about it or to articulate it. But yeah, I understanding that you cope is strength and you can use other coping stuff as your strength, basically.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree, 100%. So, getting into your classroom, right? So we're in a classroom with you right now, right? I'm not
Lucky you, that's all I'm gonna say to you, because whatever lesson you were gonna have, you're not gonna have, and you're gonna be with me, and it's gonna be brilliant.
There you go. That was a complete taste there. That's the flavour I was looking for. That's Charlotte, right? So you come in, you go, right, teacher. You're a bit like me. It's like, teacher, fuck off, sit to the back of the room. Right? I don't say it like that literally, but it's like, right, teacher, the class is mine now, bitch. Get to the back.
Yeah, basically.
I'm joking, but in a in all seriousness, there is an element of like, right, you know, let's be a force of nature. I want to make an impact, and I want to hold the space, and it's a very safe space.
It's
Um,
like semi-celebrity when you're there, right? That's sort of how I look at it. Like, I know Beyoncé has like, she has like her, and then there's like her stage her, and I feel like that is me as well. Like the me that is up in a classroom is definitely not the me, at home always, and but can
yeah,
be, but,
yeah,
it's mostly, yeah, and that's why I think when you come out of delivering in that space, you're buzzing, your adrenaline's really, really high, and then the next thing you know, you're, like, completely exhausted, like, absolutely beyond knackered, and that is because it is a performance, and it is engaging,
yeah,
and that's
yeah,
the idea, isn't it?
yeah. And to a certain degree, you're giving a lot of yourself to the audience, to the students, to the people that
Yeah.
you're engaging with. Um, And it is a really needed thing. It really is. So rewinding to when I first, knew of you and did some work with you, that was very early on in, because you got into this quite, I want to say young, but that's wrong of me to say that. But or is it right to say that you was quite young when you got into this?
Well, when I got into, like, actual kit stuff, I was young. I was probably, like, in, my mid-20s, but previous to that, so before I was a drug worker before that, a young people's drug worker, but even before that, when I was, like, 15, I started at, like, my local youth movement, and that really was everything, right? Because that was the same performance, that was the same energy. I mean, sometimes we would, like, make stuff up, just literally make it up on the spot, make up a game, make up anything. Like, it's all about reading the room. This one's not getting on, that one's like, I'm losing that one, so I've got to draw everyone back in. I learned a ton of skills in that space, and then when I went to do the drug work, um, I was very constrained by working for a council and just the systemic stuff that goes on in working for a
Mm,
council, particularly when you're working with young people and you wanna be working outside of the box and you just can't.
mm,
And so then KIP was like the natural progression of I kn I've got the skills, I can do this, like, get everybody, get the spirit going in a room. Um, but I can't do that in this drug service. So KIP was like that move to going into that space without the rules of the school on me as well. Um, in fact, they really value your energy in that space. It's interesting that they value your energy as an outside speaker like that, but maybe they wouldn't value your energy like that if you were there every day. And
working there, yeah,
yeah, it's that
yeah,
you'd
mm,
have to be a I feel like I'm way less professional than a teacher, and I much prefer youth worker, mentor,
mm.
educator, like stuff like that. Um, yeah, and there's a lot more humbleness to it, I think, as well.
Yeah, I think yeah, I agree with you, and I think there's, like, role play, right? So using the term role play, when you're a teacher, and you're a student to the teacher, and everyone's sort of I'll talk from my own experience at school. I'm like, don't trust teacher. No, I ain't telling teacher shit." So it's role play. People can be like that with therapists, therapists, don't really trust the therapist. I need to get to trust the
Yeah,
therapist.
great.
And in the same way as a teacher and a therapist, if they're not showing a bit of humanity, if I can't feel them, if I can't just feel their infallibility, their humanity, if I don't feel that, then I probably won't trust them, you
Yeah,
know, because they're a robot to me.
yeah, agree.
Um, so
That's one of the
that's
first things that I say in a room. That's the funniest thing. Yeah, I often say that. So, like, if you get a young person, you come in and then they start talking over you because they've already they've made a decision. And there's certain age groups going throughout school where some of
mm,
the age groups where they're just a bit like that. They're just
yeah, yeah,
they know it all, and there's probably nothing that you're going to be able to say that's going to be interesting, whatever. But so they might talk over me right at the beginning, and I always make the same joke. I'm always like, "Look, I'm not gonna talk over you. I don't expect you to talk over me because 'cause I've got feelings, and
mm,
you might actually hurt my feelings, then I'm gonna go home, I might be mean to my kids, I might be mean to someone on the road." Now, I'm not gonna be mean to anybody or my kids because it's
mm,
some young person, but I have to show that I'm a person. And also, like, the person who you're talking to now, in this classroom, you're probably gonna be friends with them for, like, the next 40 years, and I'm gonna be gone, and in an hour when I'm gone, you're gonna miss me because 'cause I'm actually quite fun, but you're gonna find out, right? And that often shuts people up. That often, yeah, when you look someone in the eye and act like a human and say, you know,
yeah,
"Yeah, I have got feelings as well. I know I'm stood up here at the front like all the other teachers, but even all the other teachers have
mm,
got feelings too." And, yeah, come on,
mhm.
I see you. Do you see me?
Yeah, I love that. It's realness. Because it's a complete polar opposite to the teacher that will go, "Shh," or,
Oh, yeah, well,
agree with them.
I also have, like, so let's say I am talking I know that the topics that I'm talking about, young people, I have got that luck on my side. Like, I'm not teaching maths or physics or something
Mm,
like that. You know, when I come in, I'm talking about porn for an hour. Um, I know you're going to be way more engaged than physics, I assume, right? So I have got like the upper hand there. But sometimes they come in and they're rowdy already because they're excited. They know that they're going to be talking about whatever puberty or whatever it is, and you've got a teacher who's having a bad day or a bad morning, or it's a different day for them because it's a PSHE day.
mm,
And so they already start on the young person the minute they walk through the door, right? No, you can't sit there. You have to sit there. And that's like the worst one for me when you tell a young person they can't sit there and they have to go and sit over there and they just walk through the door, right? So you're setting them up. I just know what I was like. You've totally irked them now. You've annoyed
mm,
the hell out of them. That was a real error. And I'm teaching. I'm so annoyed that you've just done that to my session. So that becomes my mission is I'm gonna make sure that that specific young person, or that pair of young people are gonna have a brilliant time, right?
yeah.
But I will nearly always say, "Look, I don't want you to sit where you don't wanna sit. I actually think you're gonna like this lesson, and I think you'll be fine with your friend. If you can prove to me and to Miss or Sir that you're
Mhm.
gonna manage this, um, give it a try, right?" They nearly always manage it, and I always make a point at the end of saying, "See, Miss, you thought they weren't gonna be able to, but they really did manage it, didn't they?
Yeah.
Done really well, guys. I'm really pleased. I loved your input." I make a real point of it because those young people are the young people like me who we never got any praise. We never did well at school. We got praise on sports day, you got praise on the talent day, but you never got praise regularly, certainly not daily or weekly. And they need it. That's the connection, instant.
Yeah. Love that, man. And I totally, what you're saying is, I know because you're just describing what I'm privy to when I'm in a situation similar to what you're doing.
Common sense, Dave. That is
It
what
is. It's
actual common sense
yeah, yeah,
isn't obvious to everybody.
yeah. It's shocking, actually. I'm not saying it's still like this now. I'll leave that to you because I haven't been in schools for a while. But back in the day when I was doing them all the time, I felt like half the time I'm going in to do a session with the students, and a lot of the time I felt like the teacher was needed part of the session. You know what I mean?
I had a teacher once at the end of an alcohol session, like literally tell me that her husband was an alcoholic. And I mean, I get that quite a lot actually, where it's you get like a teacher who's like crying in the back because
Yeah.
it's like you played like a 2-minute YouTube video that you're trying to connect with the young people, but it's like a revelation for the teacher.
Mm. Yeah, it's mad, isn't it? Mad.
Mm.
I've had that as well, actually. I remember. So I just want to, lean into the sex education part and the porn, and you mentioned that. Elaborate a little bit on that for anyone that's listening, because some people might listen to that and go, "What? You go in and talk to all these young people about porn and sex? Why are you qualified to do that? What gives you?"
That's a great question.
You know what I mean?
Um, so I'm qualified by qualifications and experience,
Of
and
course.
research and knowledge, right? But the idea now that we used to talk about sex in schools, and it was just talking like anatomically, um, and most of it was anatomically, but now we've added it's SRE, so sex and relationships.
Mhm.
And I really think the relationships bit is the difficult bit. It's not difficult to like, do stuff with somebody who you're attracted to. There is like there's stuff to learn and it's useful, but the real useful stuff is like the emotional stuff. The
Yeah.
emotional stuff is everything. So when I'm teaching about sex and relationships, I nearly always start off with, I know this is like meant to be a sex and relationships lesson, but what I'd like you to look at it is a bit of a romance lesson. And I know that all of you want to be good at romance.
Wow,
So
yeah.
you get silence,
You got
right?
'em all.
Yeah, Because who wants to be crap at romance? Nobody wants to be crap at it. Everybody wants to be good at it. And romance is like a nice way of talking about relationships. It's like the gooey stuff of a relationship that makes it enjoyable, that is all the connection, it's all the intimacy. Romance is all of that, right? But romance is the foundation of a romantic relationship. But those skills are also the foundation of friendship. And those skills are also the foundation of good business skills. So they're such amazing transferable skills that
Mm.
when we talk about them in just that romance sort of space, like I often say to young people, like think of yourself a bit like an Uber driver or like an Amazon, an Amazon seller, right? Stay with me on this, Dave. It makes sense, right? So the idea that when you have like a romantic interaction with somebody, like you want 5 stars and you wanna give them 5 stars, right? So you have this romantic interaction
Yeah.
with somebody, you give them 5 stars, and you just assume that, you're gonna get 5 stars, and then you walk off and, like, it comes up on your app, and you got a 1 star. You're like, "Huh? How's this happen? Like, where have I gone wrong?" Right? And
Yeah.
if you were really engaged in getting your 5 stars, you would have used a lot more communication. You'd have known a lot more whether the other person was having a good time or not. You would have
Mhm.
known a lot more about what stars you were getting, right? And
Yeah.
right? So these things are like really important parts of a romantic relationship is
Yeah, I love that.
making sure that that you're doing the right thing by the other person and vice versa. And the
Yeah.
only way is by talking. You
Yeah, I love that.
probably know.
Yeah, I love I'm totally with you. I totally get it. I totally got it. And, so I'm gonna steal that. I'm gonna nick that.
I always want a good rating.
I know.
That's my mindset on any interaction, right?
Yeah, of course.
This even works like, I don't know, like when you go to the chicken shop, right? So you go to
Yeah.
the chicken shop and okay, just hypothetically, let's say that the chicken shop owner is called John and, I come in and I go to the chicken shop a lot and I'm like, "All right, John, how you doing? How's your week been?" Maybe I know John's kids' names. I'm like, "Oh yeah,
Mm.
how Joshy and Steffi, and what happened with Josh the other week? There was that thing, and did it. I don't really care about John or any of it. I've just I would only be coming in because I want chicken, right? But
Mhm.
the way that I've interacted with John, potentially I'm not going to get some scrappy piece of chicken. I might get a free piece of chicken. I might, if I'm 5p short, he might let me off. Like it's relationships, it's business.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's all skills
yeah.
for communication.
Yeah, yeah, and it's key. Communication is absolutely key. Um, I wanna get into this is fascinating to me. I love this shit. Um, because it's gonna be I've got to just use gender, and it's really simple, yin yang, right? I'm gonna stick with that. I'm not gonna get into all of this mad, like, sorry, I shouldn't even say mad because it's not mad. Maybe it is, who knows? But let's keep it simple, right?
Yeah.
Gender, right?
Yep.
Female, male, yin yang, right? It's
Yeah.
controversial what I'm saying. I'm sure people are gonna go, "Mm, fuck me, me, me." Well, sorry. Um,
I think you have to break it down.
I just wanna I just wanna
Yeah,
keep
I'm not
it
gonna make you
simple.
break it down, but
Yeah,
I think it has to be broken down to be understood.
yeah, but I just wanna keep it simple. This is for context of keeping things simple, right? Is there a huge difference in what you're talking about with the way you explore this space, right? Because 'Cause I'm part of this. I've had to explore this, what you're describing, I've had to do my own work around this stuff,
For sure.
about
You
communication.
always will.
Yeah,
I
because
honestly, I think I have always thought of myself as really articulate in my emotions. I've always thought of myself as a really good communicator. But in truth, in like the real nitty gritty of my own like romantic relationships, my
yeah,
emotional relationships, when I feel really bad or if I've had to step outside of my boundary for whatever reason, that can cause a massive communication breakdown.
okay,
And that's the stuff that
right.
I I I don't know, I feel like I don't I think I'm good at communicating, but yeah, at my in my crisis and in my negative times, all of that goes out the window.
Go back to childhood.
Yeah, I'm 8.
Yeah, exactly. Inner child, wounded
I'm
child.
8, I'm in a sulk.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Angry teenager. Right. So just to reinforce what I was saying, because I don't want to. It's not about me judging or discriminating. I'm not saying it for that context. What I'm trying to say is, you got these two opposing energies, right? Yin and yang, right?
I
Like
think girls and boys are different.
Right, exactly.
Well,
This is
um,
where I'm going with it.
not
This
even
is where I'm going with it, yeah. Because 'Cause I'm not talking like boys being in relationship to boys. Like, how do I relate to another man, another a male, right? It's no different. I'm not trying to I'm just trying to I'm asking you, is there a distinct difference between those opposing energies with what we're talking about?
yeah, I think that there are distinct differences between girls and boys. I think the gender debate is mostly about I'd like to wear this and I go, which is one thing. And then the other side is like the romantic, like who am I sexually attracted to?
Mm,
And that seems to be in a huge tangle, basically. I think, you know, I think the conversation probably started out as like an equality thing, you know.
mhm.
I I'd like to wear long hair, I'd like to wear a dress, I'd like to wear a skirt, I'd like to wear trousers. You know, these are all like I'm not a man because I'd like to wear trousers, and you're not a woman because you'd like to wear a skirt. You know,
Yeah,
that's how it should sort of be. But these gender roles that exist, I guess these gender roles are the reason why I'm a teacher and not a painter, decorator, handyman, which, by the way, I would have been brilliant at, and I'm really like I love all that stuff.
yeah,
And but I would never have. It wouldn't have even occurred to me that was open to me at that when I was a young person, because women just didn't do stuff like that. Women
yeah,
were into caring roles, right? So I think a lot of it comes from that. I think the way that we communicate is different. Um, the way that we communicate together as well is different. You know, yeah, I think there's so many differences.
yeah.
Um, have I answered that? Have I like got?
Yeah, I mean, in a way, you've answered in the best way that I was asking what I was asking, because I was, getting into something that I've suddenly realised it's such a open playing field of debate that it can go so many different ways, and that's what I meant by I want to keep it simple. I don't want to get into that sort of all of that sort of. There's a lot of on the spectrum. There's so much on there now. It's so broad, and for me, I can't handle all of that. Like in the sense that to get into it, I want to keep it simple in the context of I'm just calling it yin and yang, the energy. And some males, I'm one of them, have a lot of female energy as much as I do male energy. And I'm just trying to just sort of explore with what we're talking about with
I think
uh,
there is I think there's a man box for sure, and I think for some men stepping outside of that man box, being emotional, even being able to say, "I'm emotional, I like talking, I like, you know, caring stuff." You know, even to be able to say that, I think that can be really hard for some men.
there we go. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I do think that. I think, you know, for a woman, if let's say a woman is going through a breakup, she could go to her friends and say, "Oh, I'm so miserable. I'm having such a hard time. I didn't sleep last night because I just can't get over him." And the your friend would be like, "Babes, I got you. I know men are assholes, and you know it's gonna be another one. It's gonna be fine." You know, we hold them, right? And I think for a man, when he's going through that, um, I don't think he necessarily feels like he
yeah,
has that.
yeah.
It's probably why male suicide is higher than women's suicide. I listened to a podcast recently that I thought was amazing that spoke about that men are less needed now than ever before, right? And when you're less needed, when you don't feel needed, or sorry, let me rephrase, when you feel needed, taking your life isn't an option. But when you don't feel needed, that can be a really big point into continuing to think of, like, have suicidal ideation,
Yeah,
right?
wow. Yeah,
And
yeah.
for men, you know, we don't even need men to have children anymore. Women are not all having families. Women don't need your money. You know, there's so many things that equality has brought us. I don't think we've really thought about leaving men behind in that way, and what it means for men to feel like that. And that I sort of feel like that as well about like religious and cultural stuff. We push this whole like minority stuff of trying to help all other young people in minority spaces, but I'm very concerned about where that leaves white working class boys, for example,
Mm.
don't necessarily have a community. They are it's in a space of major judgment, major, where, white men are just like the devil in some spaces. Um, yeah, I just feel like what have they got? Some of them don't have faith, they don't have community, that they don't feel needed. These what's gonna happen to those young men?
God, yeah. I mean, look, thank you, Charlotte, and that's great what how you what you just went through there. I was struggling to articulate what I wanted to say. I think I said it was just like all I was trying to get at, and you've answered it. It's great, and I want to continue to explore it because it's so valid. Is you know, let's get the. It's my mistake. Get gender out of it, right? Let's forget about gender. It doesn't matter. Them two opposing energies of yin yang, whatever. Um, Human as a human being, especially a young person. It doesn't matter. It's not just young, but we're here talking about the young people because we're talking about the work you do primarily.
Yeah,
But like me, I don't just work with young people, I work with older people. Doesn't matter,
great. And some
right?
of the same.
Exactly. What it comes down to, at the crux of it for me is the art of being human, right? That's it. Underneath everything we're talking about, how are we gonna move past just coping as having an experience as being human in the current climate of the world that we live in? What does that mean? What does that look like? Have we got the tools to do it? If not, where do we get those tools from? Is it possible to thrive in the current state of affairs? You know,
Yeah,
um,
yeah, I think there is. I think you've got to look we've got so much more access to information, right? So like when I was growing up, it was children's Britannica, and that was about it. Like you wanted to know about sex, you came home, you looked in the children's Britannica, encyclopedia, it's about 2 lines, you knew nothing, zero. You went to your mate who, I don't know, who told you a load of stuff, and they had experience, they got all of theirs from a magazine.
yeah,
That they had the confidence and the balls to sort of come out, like, to
yeah,
that you trusted them, so you learned a bit along the way. So I sort of feel like we have got way more access to information. I think young people I often say to young people, "Look, you look up all sorts of stuff and delete your browser history, so why not look up something really interesting, and you can still delete your browser history, but look it up, find out, like, research it." Like, I mean, I think when I was a young, uh drug taking teenager, um, I was just all about it's interesting, right? So I had a young person who said that they went to a party and when they were leaving, they noticed like a bowl of joints on the table, right? I said, what did you do with them? "Oh, we left them. Oh, we don't know what's in them." Mean, that was like
what?
a revelation to me, right?
Wow.
Me at 15, I'm not joking, if I'd have found a bag of powder on the floor, I would have picked it up and boshed it, right? 'Cause I was just all about getting smashed. I was just it wasn't about, "Oh, that might not work for me. That might make me feel a bit anxious. That might make me feel like this." I wasn't bothered. I wasn't concerned
Mm,
about the negatives on in the slightest. I was just concerned about, like, changing my thought, my thinking, and my feeling.
mhm,
Yeah, so I think that we know a lot more, we have a lot more access to knowledge. Um, we can change the social media that we look at if we really want to. We could, you know, I often look at my kids, my son is 15, I look at his social media and we often look at each other's to see whose is more toxic. It's obvious it's always going to be his, right? But it's something to look at because those things that's your algorithm, right? That's
yeah,
everything you're looking at is what you're like putting into what you're absorbing in some ways. Even saying this is awful, you're still absorbing it.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, so but there's so much inspirational stuff and there's so many amazing
Mm.
amazing stuff out there. I don't think we give enough attention to, say, meditation and like walking and, time with nature and all of that stuff. I think that's like we're missing a massive trick there.
Yeah.
It'd be grounding young people and people in general there. It's
Yeah.
basic
Yeah.
stuff. Even like nutrition is an obvious one, right? So I went to a school recently, and Friday, often in schools, is fish and chip Friday, right? So, she's like, "Oh, it's a great lunch today," because the teacher's always trying to let you know that you could have had a really bad lunch. So they're like, "It's going to be a really good lunch today. It's fish and chip Friday." Oh, I don't eat fish and chips at lunchtime. So what are you talking about? You don't eat fish and chip at lunchtime. Fish and chips is delicious every time, right? Now, I don't eat fish and chips at lunchtime because I will be too tired to do anything if
Oh
I eat
my
fish and
god,
chips at
yeah.
lunchtime. It's obvious, right? And I can tell when I deliver training, when I teach in a classroom, I can tell who's had like a heavy carby lunch.
Mm,
You've had pizza, chips, bread, and pasta. Like, you're knackered, your focus is off. But that's like a really basic understanding of this. If I put this into my body, it will make me feel like this, so I'm not gonna actually do that. But I love fish and chips, just not at 1 o'clock in the afternoon when I'm working, but I'll happily have it. Had it been 6 o'clock and I'd come home to your fish and chips, I would have been all over it, right? 'Cause I
yeah.
had nothing else to do afterwards.
Yeah.
That's the start of it. Like, what I put in my body is gonna make me feel a certain way, and as that sort of, like, evolves, that's makes the decision about drugs. That's how I make the decision about, I don't know, anything that I'm gonna
Yeah.
consume into my body.
Yeah. And again, it comes down to a couple of factors. I think one of it is because you gotta have a lot of discipline. You gotta have a lot of self, not just awareness and about what you just said, that, if you're gonna have a lot of carbs at lunchtime, you're gonna be in a food coma. And how are you gonna concentrate? Doesn't matter whether you're in a classroom or at work, or wherever. That's what's gonna happen. Um, Potentially, if that's how it affects you. And then obviously there's availability, access. Am I being is that being accommodated for me? Whether it's in the class or at work or
Yeah.
whatever situation. So there's a few variables, factors. Do you think? I remember school dinners when I used to go into schools all the time, and I think I used to take my own food. If I'm honest, it's like,
What school I'm going to, or at most schools, some schools it's like it's beautiful, it's like a
yeah,
stunning meal. It's
yeah.
great, got wicked amount of veg and salads, and some schools it's awful.
So it's hit and miss. That some have upped their game and they're on it, and some haven't. Do you?
Yeah, and I guess it's budget as well.
Of course, of course. And do you think a big part of this? I suspect it is. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is it depends who is making decisions in the school. If you've got someone that's quite aware, self-aware, and maybe the way I see it, if you're sitting in front of, let's say, a counselor to talk about your problems, and the counselor practices meditation and walking in nature, they're more likely to not only be more grounded in the session, but they're more likely to be able to pass that information on to you as something that's really worth doing because they're talking from their own experience,
I
right?
couldn't agree more.
And it's the same in schools. If a teacher is looks healthy, is eating healthy, looking after themselves, doing all the great stuff, they're more likely to pass that on. So,
It goes back to what you were saying. It's a sales pitch, right? It's
mm,
a sales pitch. So I can't expect, if I turn around to a young person and say, "Oh, drink water, it's good for you," right? That's one thing. But if I sell it in the way that it should be sold, right?
mm,
So water, the majority of your body is water, right? It's good for your skin, your hair, all of the things that
yeah,
are that your all the vanity side, right? As well as your focus. The same, if I say to you, you should call Childline if you're in a crisis. Okay,
mhm,
well, that's all I've said, right? But if I actually said, look, I went onto the Childline website, had quite a lot of stuff about divorce and about exam stress, and they've got this, they had this thing where there's like forum where you can speak to other people, and I thought that you'd really find that interesting. Well,
Mm.
I think you've got much more chance of a young person picking it up when I've sold it that way than, well, you can call Childline if you've got a problem.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, 100%.
It's all about your sales pitch,
It's
and that's the same with mental health, Dave, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, if you practice your mental health, and this is what I say to professionals and parents, practice it yourself because selling it to young people will be very, very
Mm,
easy because you're feeling it too.
yeah. It's like if you look to all the peers that, or people that, um, whenever I've sat in front of anyone that's gonna teach me something, I wanna look at them. I can read them. It's not just, I look in their eyes, I look in the whites of their eyes, and you can see, it's the window to their soul. It's so true, and you can get a vibe of
Um,
whether they're legit, and it's not. It's first impressions count. I mean, it's like getting a personal trainer, and you turn up for the first session, and the personal trainer's having trouble getting out of the car because they're so, obese. And to me, that wouldn't make sense to me. It wouldn't calculate. It'd be like, where's the logic in that? Am I going to trust this person to teach me how to be healthy when they can't even get out of their car because they're so obese?
Correct.
So I
It's
feel,
all about your delivery for sure.
yeah, yeah.
And I think, but I just think on a basic level, mental health and self-care is like, it should be a lesson, is we assume that young people can cope. We assume that young people, by the time they hit their GCSEs, know how to learn, right? And that I didn't know how to learn at 15. I really had no idea. I'm like looking around and they're doing this and they're doing that and they're answering the questions. And I was just lost completely. I didn't have the foundation. So to assume that everyone has the foundation is a huge error. The foundation is self care, is understanding those skills. And when you've got that foundation, all the other bits should. Maybe I should write my own hierarchy of needs. This is I feel like I'm Maslow right now. I'm a
I
Maslow
I
2025.
Charlotte, I think you're a tour de force. Is that the right saying, or a force of nature? You are a force of nature, and I think you've just become more powerful, not in a narcissistic, unhealthy way. You've just become more of a force of nature since I last, you know, collaborated with you. And but that comes from experience. That comes from a knowing, because in my opinion, it's a knowing. It's not like, "Oh, I believe." Belief is kinda like you're hoping it's gonna work out when you believe. It's like a belief. It's a knowing. I know, that I can do certain things, and I feel like you've got that in you. You just
Yeah,
know it.
100%.
It's a passion, and it's a driving force that makes innovation, and I feel like we need that force of nature in so more so much more than ever right now, currently. We really do. And you're not alone, um, and it's needed. How do we go about what's your mission? How are you gonna make, because you're not doing it just because you've got nothing better to do with your life. You're doing it because you wanna do it and you care.
For sure.
Right, and you've been there. You said it yourself. You didn't really go too much into your backstory, and we don't really need to go into that. Um, I know it's there, and I think from what you've mentioned, you've had your own experience of growing
Yeah.
up and
Yeah,
struggling.
yeah. We'll probably need like a whole new learning, yeah, there's no parenting manual and all of that stuff. I actually think there is. I think it's, if you draw together all the information that's around you, you probably do have all the tools available to you. That I spent my own time in recovery as well, and that my recovery time was I learned so much
Mm,
about reflection, and I was a reflective person always, but to the point of shame. Um, and I think recovery helped me reflect in a non-shameful way. It helped me see other people in a far more accepting way. Yeah, there's biblical stuff going on in their recovery that like is godly, that it
mm.
what could help humanity for sure.
Yeah. I know because 'cause you're talking, something that I've endeavoured, I don't know if that's the right term, I have done.
Yeah,
Uh,
same.
and,
I've taken so much of my time in recovery.
yeah, yeah, so
Is it that yeah, and they do say that, "Take what you want and leave the rest."
exactly.
And I have, for sure,
Yeah,
and I use that in my work for sure.
yeah, I'm the same, exactly the same. And, what you was just saying there, I feel is so relevant at the moment to where we're at with, do you feel it's possible to pass on to young people, and we're talking about the people that you sit in front of mostly, in these schools, in your own way, what you've learnt, is it, do you feel it gets received? Do you feel like there's a wall, a block? Does it get deflected? What are the main things you come
Yeah,
across?
interesting. Yeah, that's interesting because I think there are certain people, and young people included, who at the point where you are talking to them, they
Mhm.
are actually unreachable, right? And I was definitely like that myself. So I think that's like a good thing to think about is that some people are at that point unreachable. So through no matter what you're going to try, no matter what you're going to say, you're not going to reach them. Uh, I think that some of the yeah, I believe that if you say the right thing, you can draw people in. Um, yeah, you do need to be paying attention to the people around you to see what they need from you,
Mm,
and your agenda isn't necessarily their agenda. And if your agenda isn't their agenda, you're going to have an agenda clash or an argument, and yeah, and it's not going to be received. So ideally, you should be. I don't know if you're going into a class. Let's say you've got this group of young people, 6 young people, and and you've got to talk about drugs. Find out what would find out what they know already, because you don't want to go in with the basics because it's pointless.
yeah.
I did an alcohol training. Was working for Alcohol Concern. We did this alcohol training for a load of nurses, and it, but for some reason, they were all of them came from the same culture, and none of them had ever tried alcohol, not a drop in their whole life. And they had a
Wow.
huge judgment on alcohol. So the training was like a completely different training to how we would normally start, because the assumption is nearly always like everyone's had a try, or they've seen someone drunk, or like we live in the UK, anybody people drink for the most ridiculous reasons. So, yeah, it's a completely different starting block. So I think, yeah, you've got to think about who you're talking to and how that's going to be received. And yeah, don't assume that everybody knows everything or doesn't. It's
Yeah. Yeah, it's not for everyone. I always often think, well, I said it earlier, when I was sitting in class back in the 90s, I was like you, school reports could do better, needs to pay more attention, but I was so capable.
unhelpful.
Yeah, it doesn't
How
really,
unhelpful.
I
Why
know.
you know what? Why don't you pull your finger out, teacher, and notice me and see what I'm good at? Like, because you haven't once told me what I'm good at. So I think I'm good at nothing. And I feel rubbish right now. I feel like academics is everything, and you've made me feel like that. Thanks a lot. And I
Yeah,
wouldn't mind, but in the real reality, Dave, anybody who ends up like on a therapist chair, in their later life, what do you think they're talking about? They're not talking about what happened to them last week. It all starts with what happened then. So
yeah.
most formative years, I don't want to be on the tongue of an adult who I shamed you, I humiliated you. I
Mm.
want to be on the tip of your tongue that I was the one who saw you, noticed you, scaffolded you, and and was an enhancement to your life.
Well, that's what you're doing. You really are. And like I say, you're not alone, but that to get people that really, really do capture imagination and inspire and motivate change, that they're out there. We need more. Um, I feel like if only some of these qualities that you display and the others display could be passed on to people who are in positions of that role of teacher in the school 20, so they're in there with these students all the time, where it's not just a ad hoc bolt on that you come in to inject the good stuff. You know, I
But there
wish,
are good teachers. I have
of
to say, I
course,
don't wanna, like, completely destroy the whole, the whole everything. I think there are really, really are teachers who get it, and you see
yeah,
them online, the ones that are doing, like, the fist pumps, and they remember everything about the young people, and they, like, he comes in with his guitar to teach about,
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah,
whatever that is, like, yeah, I feel like that is great stuff,
yeah.
great work, but
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, they're chipping away as well. No, totally what you said, and I'm glad you said that. But they are in the system, the confines, the container of the bureaucracy and the pillars of the institution, which I believe are needed. We need the pillars of institution, otherwise it'd be a free for all. But come on,
That would be
people.
wild, I'm sure.
Yeah, but come on, people, man. Like, come on, Ofsted, come on, powers that be. Get with the fucking program, people. Come on, just get with the
Honestly,
program.
in India, right, the Dalai Lama has written his own curriculum that is rolled out in India, and it's
Yeah,
curriculum of happiness.
yeah,
Teaching about happiness, right? Because we know that it doesn't matter how much you have or how little you have. Like for people, like I said, did I say this at the beginning or not? People who experience awe-inspiring moments in a natural surrounding, right? It doesn't matter how much money you've got, right? There are people who've got nothing who have these, yeah, they have these awe-inspiring moments, and is that is what I'm trying. That's what
yeah,
that's what we all need a little bit of. um, yeah, it's a bit out of the race, a bit out of the, pressure, and just a bit of like, "What have I got? Where am I now?" Yeah,
yeah.
it's
Cul
good.
Cultivate a bit of joy and happiness, absolutely.
Yeah,
Bit of
very
social.
un-English as well to, like, be joyful
Well,
without being
yeah.
a narcissist.
Yeah, or someone saying, what's he want?
Oh, he's in a good mood, isn't he? So nice and oh, it's so nice. Ugh.
Yeah, us Brits, man, we have got a funny way about doing shit, and we really have. And then, until we learn to actually get over our fucking bullshit and lighten up a bit.
But that's
Um,
why the rooms are so great because
yeah,
that is a lot of that.
yeah. The rooms being, for anyone that doesn't know, the rooms are um, so 12-step recovery. It's not just support groups. 12-step recovery. I mean, there's rooms that are outside of those conventional support groups, just any support group where you've got a collective group consciousness of like-minded people, they're all just getting real and getting over their bullshit and just sort of having a laugh about that and seeing the funny side of life. Bit Monty Python, in it, recovery.
I loved it, honestly, and I also think of it a bit like, you know, we were talking before, we clicked on about, work
Mm,
and stuff like that,
mhm.
and, I always think about, like, belonging and fitting in, and, young people, however much you want them to be individuals, the most important thing for a young person is fitting in, right?
Yeah.
Just want to fit in, right? But in actual fact, it isn't that they just wanna fit in, it's actually they just wanna belong, and when you try and fit in, you actually feel much further away from the place you're trying to belong. But when you go into recovery, you meet like-minded people, which means that you can be yourself, so you belong. If you're not getting on at school and you've got a drama group you go to, it's likely in the drama group everyone gets you, right?
Yeah.
You belong. You're not fitting in. You belong because they like all that little kooky stuff or whatever
Yeah.
you're doing. Yeah, belonging for me is everything,
Yeah.
belonging was the reason why I ended up drug taking because as soon as I started that, I belonged. I found like this place where I belonged. And yeah, I think finding your belonging is important. And if you don't belong at school, and you're fitting in at school, that's one thing. But
Mm,
if you don't belong at home either, so I wasn't meeting my parents' expectations because their expectations were all academic. Um,
mm.
so I felt like nothing. Really impacts you, that lack of belonging. And that goes back to our male suicide, that goes back to white working
Mhm.
class men, that it goes back to so many things that
Mm.
belonging. So I'm always telling my kids, like, you can be a weirdo here. This is like the place to whatever weirdness you're coming out with, I want to see because I love that stuff.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, same,
bring it, you know?
same.
Bring it. I want it in the classroom. The more, the merrier. That is the
Yeah.
color I'm looking for.
Yeah, yeah. I'm totally on that one as well. Yeah. It needs to be celebrated. Join the gang.
Yeah, belong. You belong here.
Join the gang. And that's why it makes sense to me why, you know, and I can only talk for this country, why we've got an epidemic of street gang culture at the moment more than ever, because they're trying to belong.
Yeah.
And what perfect place to get um feel that herd mentality when you're feeling vulnerable. Gang mentality is ripe, is perfect. It's the antidote for someone that doesn't belong until they find something that's like what you've just described.
Yeah, we hear about it. Like when I was working at the drug service, we'd have a lot of young boys from the youth ascending team who would be like they'd be forced to come and see you because their crime was drug related, right? And a lot of those young people, like they'd find a girlfriend, and then all of a sudden, everything just stopped. All the drug taking stopped, all the crime stopped, and this girl is not some miracle. She's not like Oprah, and she's like giving, she's not Deepak Chopra or something. She's just a girlfriend. But because all of a sudden you felt like you belong, you felt like you were needed and wanted, everything has dissipated because of it. That's the same with your drug taking. That's the same with loads of harming stuff. Is belonging is really, really that I think that's why we say recovery, right? Is to recover who you were and where you were and who you were, the original you.
Yeah, authenticity. Um, yeah, I mean that was my experience. I found when I was younger, I didn't fit in. I was I was a misfit, square peg in a round hole, all of that stuff. For me, skateboarding was my little fellowship of fellow outcasts, so that was
Where you
great.
belonged.
Yeah, and then, there's so many pockets of people that I sort of just connected to, along the way, and then, like you, when I found, um, support in the circle of the we with recovery, um, that process, like you for me, it was a rite of passage. It was a rite of passage that I never had. So I learned emotional intelligence. I learned how to, yeah, it's a reconnect, like you say, recover. It's a reconnect to my authenticity. And from that place, I could then discover who am I?
Yeah,
Who's
because you're
them?
always searching. Everyone
Exactly.
is. It's normal to search, to find yourself, but you're right
Yeah,
there.
absolutely. And this is why I feel it's so important that going back to what I was saying, what we were talking about you gotta practice what you preach. To go into, some young people who are really in this place in life where they're about to embark already on this journey of, like, self-discovery, who, they're at that crucial time where they need some really good role models. What more perfect people than people that have actually done a journey of self-introspection and, know a bit about that.
It's so simple. Honestly, I
Exactly.
mean, I did a thing with ChatGPT where I put in, help me look at my vulnerabilities, ask me 10 questions to take my vulnerabilities and to uncover my vulnerabilities and show me how to, manage that. It was like therapy. It was incredible.
Really?
Incredible. I'm not joking,
Wow.
Dave. I'm gonna message it to you exactly what I put in.
Mhm.
It was a game changer. Yeah, and it really helped me to see that I do still have stuff that I need to constantly be aware of. I'm ADHD. I take rejection very badly and sensitively, and when I'm heightened, my rejection, yeah, is heightened basically, and I can
Yeah.
often feel like I'm being rejected when I'm really not. It's all
Yeah, yeah.
totally not feeling, it's but Yeah, I was it was fascinating. I think ChatGPT is
Oh.
great for, people in general.
Yeah, that's really interesting to hear that, 'cause I'm first person to put my hand up to go, "Ee," to do anything to do with, like, the tech world, because 'cause I'm a bit of a dinosaur, but I'm starting to open up to it a little bit more.
I think you've got to think of, the internet as a very as like Bangkok market, you know? It
Bangkok
but
market.
well, that's sort that well, that's how I sort of say it to parents is, you wouldn't drop your kid off at Bangkok market and say, "Here, navigate yourself," right?
Bloody hell,
So,
no.
it means that young people need to have help navigating it because otherwise, you're gonna end up like watching an execution or God knows what, right? But there are amazing things out there, amazing support, inspiring, like, mindsets that can take you and elevate you, basically.
Yeah, and that's ultimately the most important thing we need. Storytelling as well, I feel, is really important, which is a big element of what you do in the school
Yeah,
system, right?
big time. The anecdotal stuff is the stuff that connects with people in general, for sure.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to coming back in. So life share. I mean, having a car crash story and a few tats goes a long way, right?
I just think that it's the way that you deliver it is everything, for sure.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm excited. So look, I feel like we're going to end it up in a minute because I think we've covered a lot of ground. Do you feel like there's anything you want to throw into the mix?
No, I mean, I could talk underwater if I'm honest. So I had someone say to me that I'd given aspirin a headache. So talking is I can go on forever. So yeah, I've loved every bit of it, though, to be honest. So no, I don't think I. Yeah, yes and no. Yes, there's loads more we could have talked about. But yeah, I don't think we can cover everything.
Well, look, I've had people on who I want to revisit. I want to get people back on at some point. And just sort of, you know. So there's more to cover. There's more to cover. We'll just come back to it a bit down
Are
the
you
line.
inviting me back? Because I'm getting excited. This is great, Dave.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Perfect. Anytime.
Goes two ways, man. You get me involved in stuff, and I'll get you involved.
Perfect.
So I'm gonna put in a link to what. How can people find you?
So if you go to my website, www.kipeducation.com, everything goes there. The socials are there at Kip Education UK. Yeah, I'm there basically.
Okay. Well, I'll add that in on the description, so you've got a link for anyone that wants to go down the Charlotte Gordon rabbit hole of KIP education, see more about the amazing work you do. And it is amazing. I vouch for that. I wouldn't have you on if I didn't think you was, a key player in this space, because you are. You've been in
Yeah,
this. It's not like you're not one of these Herberts that's just popped up. Sorry if anyone's called Herbert. I'm just using that word.
no one's called Herbert. Don't worry.
I don't think I've ever come across a Herbert. Herman, I
Guess
think.
who? I think that was like a name on Guess Who.
Oh, okay. But, yeah, you're not just some random Herbert that's just popped up and gone, "Oh, do you know what? I'm just gonna go to school, start," it's like you've put the work in.
Oh
You've
yeah,
done,
100%.
and
That's how I add value to my work with parents and with professionals is that I do still work with young people and I you can't talk about young people if you're not working with them and you're not on the ground with them as well.
exactly. And more importantly, no, not more importantly, just as importantly, because I know this from my own experience, is you've got to have done a little bit of work on this stuff, for yourself,
Yeah,
in my opinion, to be qualified. What's your qualification? I've got a PhD in my lived experience, mate.
yeah, for sure.
Okay? And that's it. And that goes a long way, especially to these young people that can smell a rat a
Yeah,
mile.
we just need to normalize that and normalize
Exactly.
being reflective, normalize seeking help. These are all things that we should be normalizing.
Yeah, absolutely, man. All right, look, Charlotte, we're gonna sign off. So, absolute freaking pleasure to have you
Thank you.
join in.
And we managed it really without swearing as well. So
I can't get away with an
yeah.
episode without swearing.
There was only one swear word, to be honest, so it's probably a good one.
Yeah, relevant,
Mm.
always. Right, take care for now, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
No problem. See you later. Bye. Bye. Bye.